The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a sterile glow across the marble floors of Global Tech Incorporated. The towering glass building reflected the city skyline, like a monument to corporate power. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Executives in crisp suits strode purposely down hallways, their faces etched with stress. Somewhere deep in the nerve center of the company, a software glitch had been identified, an error that could cost Global Tech $100 million if not solved in the next 48 hours. Meanwhile, Marcus Lewis wheeled his janitorial cart down the same corridor, unnoticed, invisible. At 34, Marcus had spent the last decade cleaning offices, polishing floors, and emptying trash cans in this very building. On the surface, he was a quiet janitor everyone overlooked. But beneath the uniform of blue overalls and a simple cap, Marcus carried a mind that could rival the best engineers in the company. He paused outside the server room, leaning against the wall, his eyes scanning the technical schematics taped haphazardly on the bulletin board. He wasn't supposed to be here. He knew that, yet he couldn't ignore the gnawing curiosity that pulled him toward the problem no one else could solve. From inside the boardroom, muffled voices leaked through the glass walls. "We need a solution now, or we're looking at disaster," one executive barked. Richard Vance, the CEO, was pacing like a caged predator, his tailored suit sharp, his presence intimidating. "I don't care whose responsibility it is. Find me a fix today. $100 million is nothing to gamble with." Marcus listened, silent, calculating. In seconds, he recognized a small pattern, a minor oversight in the way the software algorithms were structured. It wasn't a major bug, not really, but it was enough to trigger cascading failures across the system. He grabbed a mop bucket and scribbled equations and notes on its surface. The wheels squeaked as he moved quietly, marking what no one else had considered. His mind raced faster than the flashing lights on the servers. Suddenly, the door to the hallway burst open, and Mr. Harper, a senior engineer, stormed past him. "What the hell are you doing with that bucket?" Harper snapped, squinting at Marcus's notes. Marcus straightened, his calm voice measured. "Just thinking. There's something small, overlooked. It could explain the glitch." Harper laughed, a short, derisive bark. "You? A janitor? Marcus, maybe stick to cleaning floors instead of imagining you can fix a $100 million problem." Marcus clenched his fists, but he didn't respond. He had long since learned that words wouldn't convince people who refused to see. Later that night, the office had emptied. Desks were stacked with papers, monitors blinked silently, and the scent of coffee lingered in the air. Marcus wheeled his cart near the server room and opened his notebook, already filled with sketches and algorithms he'd secretly studied. He muttered under his breath, a mantra only he could hear. "If I don't do this, nobody will. And if I fail, at least I tried." Hours passed. Marcus's calculations became increasingly precise, each line revealing the flaw that had eluded the company's top engineers. His mind moved in leaps and bounds, jumping from one variable to the next, visualizing the cascading failures in real time. He could see the consequences, the millions lost, the panic of board members, the stock prices plummeting. Then the unexpected happened. The janitor's mind, the one the company ignored, unlocked the solution. The $100 million problem, something no one in the room had solved, now had a clear, elegant fix. Just as Marcus was about to record the final step, footsteps echoed behind him. He froze, heart hammering. He turned slowly. Jenna, a young intern, peeked around the doorway. Her eyes were wide, almost incredulous. "Marcus, how?" He didn't answer. There was no time. They both heard it. The click of heels on marble, authoritative, sharp. CEO Richard Vance was walking down the hall, closer, faster. "Who's there?" Richard called out, his voice slicing through the silence. Marcus ducked behind a server console, clutching his mop bucket notebook. Jenna stepped forward, shielding him slightly. "It's just me," she said, her voice trembling. "But you have to see this." Richard entered the server room, scanning the area with suspicion. His gaze fell on Marcus's bucket, the scribbled equations partially visible. A scowl formed on his face. "You," Richard barked. "What are you doing in here? This isn't a playground." Marcus swallowed hard. "Sir, I think I found a problem. The root cause of the $100 million glitch." Richard laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. "You? A janitor? You have no business touching this system. Step aside before I call security." Marcus felt a familiar sting of frustration, the sting of being underestimated, dismissed, overlooked simply because of the color of his overalls and the nature of his job. But he also felt a spark that refused to be snuffed out by ignorance or arrogance. He took a deep breath, gripping the mop bucket like it was a shield. "Sir, I may not be on your payroll as an engineer, but I can solve this problem. Please just give me 5 minutes." The room went silent. Jenna watched, her jaw tight, knowing this moment could change everything. Richard's eyes narrowed, his pride battling reason. Finally, he sneered, 5 minutes? Fine. Impress me or you're fired. And don't think I won't have security remove you if you fail. Marcus nodded once, resolutely. He turned back to the equations. The clock was ticking. Every second was critical. The weight of the company, the millions of dollars, the reputations, everything rested on this moment. He whispered under his breath again, "This is it, one chance, one shot." Suddenly, a soft alarm beeped from the server, a warning the system was about crash. Marcus's mind raced even faster. He had the solution, but he couldn't execute it without access to the main terminal, locked behind the CEO's clearance. He looked up. Richard's smirk had turned into a frown. "Well, what are you waiting for? Speak." Marcus took a deep breath and whispered the words that would either change his life or end it. "I know exactly how to fix it, but I need access to the terminal. Please trust me." Richard's eyes narrowed to slits. "Trust you? Why the hell would I trust a janitor over my engineers?" The room held its breath. Jenna held hers. Marcus felt every eye on him, weighing him, judging him, dismissing him. But deep down, he knew one thing. He was right, and the solution was in his hands. And then the door to the server room clicked. Richard stepped closer. The screen blinked. The moment of truth had arrived. The next morning, the office hummed with a nervous energy that felt almost electric. The city outside was waking up, unaware of the silent storm brewing inside the gleaming walls of Global Tech Incorporated. Every desk, every monitor, every employee seemed to carry the weight of the impending catastrophe. Marcus, however, was already on his path, wheels squeaking softly on the polished marble floor. The mop bucket from last night had been replaced by his notebook, worn from countless nights of study and observation. He had a plan, one that might cost him his job, his pride, even a sense of safety, but he couldn't ignore the solution that had revealed itself so clearly in his mind. Jenna, the young intern, had refused to leave Marcus's side after last night. She believed in him in a way few others could. Her laptop open, she whispered, "Marcus, I've looked at your notes. This could actually work, but you'll need access to the engineer's system files. They won't just hand that over." Marcus nodded, determination etched into every line of his face. "I know, but it's the only way. If I can show them exactly where the flaw is, maybe they'll listen." Their first obstacle appeared almost immediately. Mr. Harper, the senior engineer who had mocked Marcus the night before, walked into the server room with a sense of superiority. His sharp gaze fell on Marcus and Jenna. "And what do we have here?" Harper sneered. "A janitor and a rookie intern? I thought we made it clear that only authorized personnel are allowed in the server area." Marcus took a steady breath. "I don't need authorization to see the problem, sir. And I'm not asking to run anything yet. I just need to show you where the flaw is. It's small, subtle, but critical. If ignored, it'll trigger the $100 million loss." Harper laughed, a cruel sound that bounced off the metal walls. "Small? Subtle? Marcus, I've been engineering systems for over 20 years. I don't need a janitor telling me what could go wrong." Jenna shot Marcus a glance. He could see the worry in her eyes, but also the spark of hope. He knew she had his back. "Give him a chance, Mr. Harper. Please." Harper snorted. "Chance? We don't have time for fantasies. If you really understand this, maybe you can explain it to Richard. Otherwise, stay out of the way. Marcus's fists clenched, but he forced himself to remain calm. They didn't see what he saw yet, but soon they would. He wheeled his cart closer to the terminal and opened his notebook, flipping through pages filled with complex algorithms, calculations, and diagrams no one would have expected from a janitor. He began to point out the series of steps, explaining the sequence of the glitch. "You see this?" Marcus said, tapping the page. "The system misreads a single variable in the input sequence. It's a minor error, but it propagates throughout the entire network. No one noticed it because it appears only under very specific conditions. Conditions that are happening right now. If we don't correct it immediately, every dependent process fails." Harper leaned over, scrutinizing the notes. For a moment, he looked confused. Then his face twisted into disbelief. How did you notice this?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "I've spent years watching patterns. Sometimes it's not about your title or degree. It's about observation and logic. This is why it's slipping past engineers. It's too small to be obvious, but it's the exact cause of the potential $100 million loss." Harper turned away, muttering something under his breath, clearly unsettled. Jenna's face glowed with pride. She could see it. Marcus wasn't just right. He was brilliant. Then came the next hurdle. Richard Vance, the CEO, stormed into the room, exuding the confidence and arrogance of a man used to being the smartest person in every room. "Marcus, I hope you're not wasting my time," he barked. "We're on a tight deadline, and your mop bucket calculations can't possibly help. Harper, please deal with this nonsense." Marcus lifted his chin, steady and unwavering. "Sir, this isn't nonsense. I can show you exactly how to fix it, but I need access to the main terminal." Richard's eyes narrowed, his lips twisting into a smirk. "And why should I trust you? You're a janitor. You've never even touched this system before." Marcus didn't flinch. "I've touched it in observation and study, enough to see what everyone else overlooked. Please, just give me a chance to prove it. If I'm wrong, you can fire me immediately." A tense silence filled the room. Even Harper, who had mocked Marcus the night before, felt the weight of this moment. Something about Marcus's calm confidence, the precision in his words and the clarity in his logic made it impossible to dismiss him entirely. Richard's pride battled reason for a moment, and then he made a decision that would shock everyone. "Fine," he said, snapping his fingers. 5 minutes. That's all you get. Show me the solution or leave." Marcus exhaled, almost silently. He wheeled the cart to the terminal, opened the secured files, and began inputting the corrections he had mapped out. The calculations flowed seamlessly. Each line of code was a step closer to resolving the massive flaw. Harper watched, fascinated despite himself. "I can't believe this. He's actually fixing it." Jenna bit her lip, anxiety and excitement colliding. "Marcus, it's working." But just as the correction sequence neared completion, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the servers. The system detected unusual activity. Marcus was technically unauthorized. Security protocols were triggered. Richard's eyes widened. What the hell? Marcus's hands flew across the keyboard. "It's okay. It's me. Just let it run. You'll see. Everything will stabilize." The tension in the room was unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity. The board's impending disaster hung over them like a dark cloud. Employees hovered near the edges of the room, unable to tear their eyes away. And then the terminal displayed a message. "Error resolved. System stable." A silence, so heavy it could be felt, fell across the room. Every executive froze, unable to believe what they had just seen. Harper's jaw dropped. Jenna's eyes welled with tears. Richard's face shifted from disbelief to fury to awe in a matter of seconds. How did you do this?" Marcus looked up calmly, his voice steady, carrying the weight of both humility and triumph. "Sir, I just saw what no one else did. The system isn't broken. It was just misunderstood." Richard's mind raced. Pride, ego, and fear collided within him. He could recognize Marcus's brilliance, or he could dismiss it, preserving his own image. His next move would determine the fate of Marcus and perhaps the culture of the entire company. And then the door to the boardroom swung open, announcing the start of the executive briefing. The board members were walking in, unaware that the crisis had just been quietly neutralized by the janitor they had all ignored. Marcus felt the weight of eyes upon him. Every executive, every engineer, every intern now knew the truth. He was the only one who had solved the problem. But before anyone could process it, Richard spoke, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Marcus, show them exactly what you did. Now!" Marcus swallowed, knowing that revealing the solution would put him directly in the spotlight, and perhaps in the crosshairs of corporate politics. He took a deep breath and with steady hands prepared to unveil the full sequence of his solution to the board. The boardroom was silent, save for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Marcus stood at the front, notebook in hand, his heart beating in rhythm with the tension that filled the room. Every executive's gaze was fixed on him, every eye weighing him, judging him. The janitor, who had spent a decade quietly navigating corridors, unnoticed and underestimated, was now the center of a storm he had never asked for, but had earned through sheer brilliance. Richard Vance sat at the head of the table, his expression a mixture of incredulity and irritation. "Marcus," he began, voice sharp, "you solve a $100 million problem overnight. Explain. Convince us this isn't a fluke, or this ends badly for you." Marcus took a deep breath. "Sir, it isn't a fluke. The flaw wasn't in the system itself, but in how the inputs were interpreted under rare conditions. Most engineers wouldn't notice because it only triggers under a very specific sequence of operations. That's why it appeared to be a catastrophic failure. It wasn't." He turned to the board, spreading his notes across the table. Lines of code diagrams and step-by-step breakdowns were laid bare. "Here," he said, pointing to a highlighted section. This variable was being duplicated incorrectly, cascading errors through dependent systems. Once corrected, the system stabilizes automatically. I've already run tests, and every dependent process now aligns perfectly. Jenna, standing quietly in the corner, could barely contain her pride. She had known from the beginning that Marcus was extraordinary, but seeing the board's reaction was intoxicating. Mr. Harper, who had mocked Marcus the previous night, now leaned forward, examining the equations with wide eyes. This is precise," Harper muttered. "I've reviewed every system log, and you're correct. Every calculation matches. How did you even notice this?" Marcus kept his voice calm. Observation. Understanding the system as a whole, not just isolated parts. Most engineers focus on segments, but a system behaves like a living organism. You can't predict its failure unless you see the connections others overlook. Richard Vance's jaw tightened. He had the power to crush Marcus with a single word, to dismiss the janitor as an anomaly and take credit for the resolution himself. Yet, even he couldn't ignore the evidence. The board's murmurs of astonishment, Harper's reluctant nods, the undeniable proof of Marcus's intellect. Before he could respond, an alert blared from the main terminal. The system was now running smoothly, lines of code executed flawlessly, and the looming $100 million catastrophe had been averted. The room went quiet, every executive frozen. The gravity of what had just happened sank in. A janitor, someone they had overlooked and dismissed, had prevented the company from financial ruin. Richard's voice was tight, controlled, but dripping with tension. "Explain why this wasn't caught by our engineers in the first place." Marcus gestured toward the board. "Complex systems have blind spots. Sometimes expertise can blind you to the obvious. It isn't incompetence, it's perspective. Anyone in my position, observing quietly and thinking freely, could notice what the team missed." The tension in the room was palpable. The executives whispered to each other, some incredulous, others visibly shaken. Richard's pride and ego fought against reality, a battle visible in the tightening lines of his face. Then came the next moment of high stakes. Marcus knew he had solved the immediate problem, but the real challenge lay ahead, getting the executives and CEO to accept the solution and acknowledge it publicly. Without that, his contribution could vanish into corporate oblivion. Jenna whispered, "Marcus, they're listening. You have to show them the terminal data, the proof." Marcus nodded. He wheeled the cart closer to the terminal, fingers poised on the keyboard. With careful precision, he displayed the live system logs, highlighting the corrected variable, the eliminated cascade errors, and the stabilized outputs. Every chart, every line of code, every automated process now aligned perfectly. A stunned silence followed. Even Richard couldn't deny the truth. Every executive in the room was now witnessing evidence that no one could argue with. Then the tension escalated further. The door to the boardroom opened suddenly, and security personnel stepped in, alerted by the unusual activity Marcus had triggered the night before. "What's going on here?" one of them demanded, eyes scanning Marcus. Richard's face hardened. "Security, stand down. This is being handled." Marcus felt the weight of the room press down on him. Every second now mattered. If he miscommunicated even slightly, his credibility could vanish instantly. But he pressed on, calmly explaining the sequence of steps that led to the solution. Some executives whispered to each other, nodding in disbelief. Others stared at Marcus, eyes wide, realizing the depth of his genius. Harper muttered under his breath, almost to himself, "I can't believe we overlooked this. We were blind." Richard's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to assert dominance, to claim victory, but the undeniable proof in front of him left no room for ego. And yet, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, waiting for him to act, to either recognize Marcus or crush him. Then Marcus reached the final step of his demonstration, the one that would seal the $100 million disaster permanently. He pressed a single key on the terminal. Immediately, the terminal flashed, system stabilized, all errors corrected. The executives froze. Jenna gasped. Harper's face turned pale, almost as if he were witnessing a miracle. Richard leaned back in his chair, eyes wide, the tension in his chest like a vice. Marcus looked up, calm but resolute. "It's fixed. Every dependent process now functions as intended. The system is stable. The $100 million problem solved." The room erupted in whispers, disbelief, awe, and cautious admiration. But Richard's gaze burned into Marcus, sharp and unrelenting. "You janitor solved this? Overnight?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir. Observation, patience, and persistence. That's all it took." For a moment, Richard was silent, calculating. Pride, jealousy, and the stark reality of Marcus's brilliance collided inside him. His next move would decide Marcus's fate and the culture of the company. And then a voice broke the tension from the corner of the room. "Sir, we need to acknowledge him," Harper said quietly, almost reluctantly. "This isn't just a fluke. He deserves credit. Without him, we'd be in chaos right now." Richard's face hardened. He looked at Marcus. "You want recognition? That's your choice. But know this, acknowledgement comes at a cost." Marcus's expression was steady. He had no fear of cost, only of silence. "Sir, all I want is for the truth to be recognized. That's all." The executives turned to Richard, waiting. The room was heavy with anticipation. Every breath, every heartbeat carried the weight of the decision. Would Marcus finally receive the justice and recognition he deserved? Or would the company crush him under its pride and hierarchy? Richard's lips curled into a slow, measured smile. But it wasn't a smile of approval. It was a smile that hinted at shock, calculation, and an unexpected plan. The boardroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Every executive in Global Tech Incorporated sat at the massive mahogany table, eyes fixed on Marcus. The janitor turned genius stood at the front, notebook in hand, calm but resolute. Richard Vance, the CEO, sat at the head of the table. His fingers drummed impatiently, his mind racing. Pride, ego, and disbelief wrestled inside him. He had witnessed Marcus solve the $100 million problem, a feat he himself hadn't managed despite years of experience. But now the question remained. Would he allow this janitor to shine publicly, or would he attempt to reclaim the victory for himself? Marcus cleared his throat. "Sir, members of the board, the flaw in the system is not just a minor error. It's a subtle sequence of misinterpreted variables that cascaded across dependent processes. If unchecked, it would have triggered massive losses. I've mapped the error, corrected the sequence, and run the system live, stabilizing every process. A murmur ran through the board. Some executives exchanged incredulous looks. Others whispered quietly, try to grasp the magnitude of what had just been said. Richard leaned forward. And you want us to believe this? That a janitor, who has never held an engineering role, could single-handedly prevent $100 million in losses overnight? Marcus met his gaze steadily. Sir, I understand your skepticism, but the proof is here, he said, pointing to the terminal where live system logs displayed every correction, every corrected variable, every eliminated cascade error. Everything is documented, verifiable, and repeatable. The system is stable. The problem is solved. Silence. The board members stared, mouths slightly open, eyes wide. Harper, the senior engineer who had doubted Marcus before, now shook his head slowly. I don't understand how you saw this. I've reviewed the same logs 10 times, and this was invisible to us. Marcus spoke calmly, with quiet authority. Sometimes expertise blinds you. You see what you expect to see. I saw the system as a whole, and the connections others overlooked became obvious. Richard's hands clenched. He wanted to assert dominance, to dismiss Marcus entirely, but he could feel the eyes of the board on him, the unspoken pressure building. Every executive knew the truth. They had just witnessed a miracle in real time. Marcus took a deep breath. I don't ask for recognition, sir. I only ask that the solution be acknowledged. The company, the employees, and the stakeholders deserve stability and the truth. Richard's jaw tightened, pride battling reality. For a moment, he was silent. Then he leaned back, his voice measured but dripping with tension. Fine, show them. Marcus moved to the terminal, his fingers poised above the keyboard. With a single press of a key, the system executed the full correction sequence. Lines of code ran flawlessly, charts updated, processes stabilized. Every alert, every warning, every potential failure had been neutralized. The room went silent again. Then slowly, the murmurs began, whispers of awe, disbelief, admiration. The board members exchanged glances, realizing the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Marcus had not just solved a technical problem. He had saved the company. Harper finally spoke, voice almost shaking. This is genius. Absolutely genius. I can't believe we overlooked something so simple yet so critical. Jenna's eyes sparkled with pride. You did it, Marcus. You actually did it. Richard's expression shifted. He wanted to claim victory, to maintain control, but even he couldn't ignore the facts. The evidence was irrefutable. Marcus had done what no engineer, no manager, no executive could. Richard's voice cut through the room, sharp and deliberate. Marcus. The board would decide how to proceed. But understand this. Credit or no credit, you've placed yourself in a very visible position. Every eye in this room now knows your value. Every mistake, every triumph, it will be judged. Marcus's gaze met Richard's. Calm, unwavering, filled with quiet defiance. I accept that. All I want is for the truth to be recognized. That's all. The board members began discussing quietly among themselves, some advocating for Marcus to receive formal recognition, others hesitant, unsure how to reconcile their perceptions with the evidence. The tension in the room escalated, the pressure almost unbearable. Then, suddenly, an unexpected voice spoke up. Richard, we need to make this right. Marcus didn't just prevent disaster. He showed what talent looks like when it's underestimated. Ignoring this would be a mistake that could cost us more than money. It's about culture, integrity, and leadership. The comment cut through the room like a knife. Richard's face tightened. His pride battled morality. He could feel the weight of every eye in the room. The next decision he made would define his legacy. Marcus remained silent, letting the moment stretch, letting the tension rise. He knew the CEO's next move would either validate his years of quiet brilliance or crush him entirely. And then Richard did something no one expected. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, he said, his voice steady, deliberate, and commanding. I've made my decision. The room held its collective breath. Richard's eyes locked on Marcus. Marcus Lewis, you will be recognized for your work. You will be given a position that reflects your abilities, your intelligence, and your contribution. Effective immediately, you are no longer just a janitor at Global Tech Incorporated. A stunned silence fell over the room. Then murmurs of shock, disbelief, and admiration swept across the executives. Harper's jaw dropped. Jenna's eyes welled with tears. Marcus simply nodded, a quiet smile forming, relief and pride mingling together. But just as the applause and whispers began, Richard leaned forward, his tone darkening slightly. However, every head in the room snapped toward him. Richard's gaze locked on Marcus. Your promotion comes with scrutiny. Your every action will be watched. This company is not forgiving to mistakes at your level. Earn your place, or it will be taken away. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he did not flinch. I understand, sir, and I accept that challenge. A ripple of tension remained in the room. Even as Marcus had won recognition, the stakes had never been higher. Every executive knew this was only the beginning. The office buzzed with whispers and cautious glances as Marcus walked through the corridors of Global Tech Incorporated. No longer just a janitor, he now carried a title, one that reflected his brilliance, his contribution, and his courage. But the weight of that recognition pressed on him. Every eye in the building seemed to follow him, some with admiration, others with suspicion, and a few with barely concealed envy. In the boardroom, the senior executives huddled, still digesting the events of the past day. The $100 million disaster had been averted, not by top engineers or seasoned managers, but by a man they had overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. The realization was humbling and frightening. Richard Vance, the CEO, paced in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection sharp and authoritative against the city skyline. He had made the decision to recognize Marcus publicly, but his mind was a storm of calculations. Pride, ego, fear, and grudging respect collided inside him. Harper, still processing the events, spoke quietly. Richard, he saved the company. You can't deny that. Everyone knows it. Recognizing him isn't optional. It's necessary. Richard's jaw tightened. I know, and that's why Marcus is being promoted. But recognition comes with conditions. He's entering a world he's never navigated before. Every move he makes will be scrutinized. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his workspace, where Jen had set up a small area for him with a laptop and access to the projects he would now oversee. She looked at him with awe and excitement. Marcus, it's happening. They actually gave you the role. But people are watching more than you can imagine. Marcus nodded, a quiet determination settling in his chest. I know, and I won't let them down. This isn't just about me. It's about showing that talent can come from anywhere, that observation, persistence, and courage matter. Word of Marcus's achievement spread quickly. By lunchtime, nearly half the company knew that the janitor had single-handedly solved a massive software failure. Some employees whispered their admiration, others their disbelief. Yet everywhere he went, Marcus felt the weight of scrutiny. Every question, every glance, every interaction was now a test of his ability to perform at a level few expected and most doubted. That afternoon, the board called a meeting to discuss Marcus's role, his responsibilities, and the implications of his contribution. The executives debated, some eager to embrace a culture of recognition and merit, others reluctant, unwilling to admit that a janitor had outshone them all. Richard entered the room, every eye following him. He stopped at the head of the table, clearing his throat. We've all seen the results. Marcus Lewis has proven not just brilliance, but courage. That cannot be ignored. Effective immediately, he will lead the task force to oversee system integrity across all departments. He will have direct access to engineers' resources and decision-making power necessary to prevent future disasters. A ripple of shock ran through the room. Even Harper, who had come to respect Marcus, seemed stunned. Richard continued, voice firm. However, and this is crucial, his role will be under strict performance evaluation. Every project, every decision, every solution will be monitored. The company cannot tolerate mistakes at this level. Marcus must earn his place every day. The tension in the room was palpable. On one hand, Marcus had been given unprecedented authority. On the other, the implicit warning was clear. The higher he climbed, the sharper the scrutiny, and the more unforgiving the corporate world could be. Later that day, Marcus walked to the halls, nodding at colleagues who now treated him differently. Some smiled warmly, congratulating him. Others avoided eye contact, perhaps threatened by the shift in hierarchy. Harper approached him cautiously. "Marcus, I want to apologize for doubting you," Harper said quietly. "I've worked here for 20 years and never imagined someone like you could see what you did. I owe you my respect." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. That means a lot. But we have work to do. Together, the system is stable for now, but there's more to ensure long-term security and efficiency. I can't do it alone." Jenna smiled, her pride evident. "You'll inspire more than just the engineers, Marcus. You're showing everyone what's possible when people are seen for their abilities, not their position." Marcus felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of pride, responsibility, and determination. But he also felt the weight of the challenge ahead. Recognition was one thing. Sustaining it, proving it daily, was another. Then, just as he was about to leave, Richard approached him privately, a shadow of tension behind his composed demeanor. "Marcus," Richard began, voice low, measured, "today, you've changed the company, but change is dangerous. Not everyone will accept it. Not everyone wants talent to rise from the shadows. You'll have allies, yes, but also enemies. Remember this. If you falter, you'll be used as an example. Do you understand?" Marcus looked him squarely in the eye. "I understand. And I'm ready." Richard's lips curled into a faint, unreadable smile. "Good. Then welcome to your real challenge." As Marcus walked away, he knew the corporate battlefield had only just begun. Recognition had come, but now came scrutiny, politics, jealousy, and the unrelenting pressure to prove himself every single day. He felt fire inside him, a determination to rise above it all, to show that resilience, intelligence, and courage could overcome prejudice and hierarchy. That evening, as he sat in his new office overlooking the city skyline, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come. From janitor to problem solver, from overlooked to recognize, he had learned that true talent could not remain hidden forever, but it could be tested in ways no one expected. And then an urgent alert flashed on his terminal. An unexpected glitch, minor but significant, in a system Marcus had thought stabilized. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, heart racing. It was the first test of his new role. The glow from the city skyline streamed to the glass walls of Marcus's new office, reflecting off the polished floors and high-tech consoles. The hum of servers, once terrifying and incomprehensible, now sounded like music to him. But the alert flashing on his terminal reminded Marcus that his work had just begun. The system had flagged a glitch, minor, but potentially disastrous if left unaddressed. It wasn't a $100 million crisis of before, but in Marcus's new position, every misstep could be magnified. Every eye was on him. Every expectation, whispered or unspoken, weighed heavily. Jenna appeared at the doorway, her expression a mixture of concern and admiration. "Marcus, the team's waiting for your lead. Everyone's watching. This is your first test." Marcus nodded, adjusting his tie, a symbol of his new role and responsibilities. "Then we lead," he said calmly. "Together." He moved to the terminal, analyzing the code with precision. Each line told a story, every variable a potential pitfall. He could see immediately what had caused a glitch, a minor synchronization error in a subsystem, something his engineers had overlooked, blinded by routine procedures and assumptions. He turned to the team gathered behind him. "Listen carefully. This isn't just about fixing the glitch. It's about understanding why it happened, preventing recurrence, and making the system resilient. Every decision we make from now on matters. Are we ready?" A chorus of affirmations followed. Engineers, interns, and senior staff alike focused, united by Marcus's quiet authority and the respect he had earned. Hours passed as the team worked under Marcus's guidance. He explained the logic behind every correction, the rationale behind each adjustment. Where once he had been invisible, now his words carried weight. Where once he had been dismissed, now he commanded attention, not through ego, but through brilliance, humility, and clarity. Finally, the system stabilized. All alerts cleared. Processes ran smoothly. Marcus leaned back, exhaling, and looked at the team. Their applause wasn't loud or dramatic, but was genuine, a recognition of skill, leadership, and courage. Harper, the senior engineer who had once mocked Marcus, approached him. I underestimated you, he admitted quietly. You've taught us all something today. Talent doesn't come with a title or position. It comes from insight, persistence, and the courage to act. Marcus smiled, nodding, and it's not about one person. This is about recognizing talent wherever it exists, valuing it, and building a culture where everyone can contribute their best. That's how we succeed. Richard Vance entered the room quietly, his expression unreadable. He stopped near Marcus's desk, studying the young man who had not only saved the company, but was now proving himself in real time. Marcus, Richard began, voice measured, you've exceeded every expectation. Not only did you solve a $100 million problem, but you led the team through your first real challenge flawlessly. I underestimated you. That was a mistake I won't repeat. Marcus met his gaze evenly. Thank you, sir. Recognition is important, but results speak louder than words. I'll continue to prove that this trust is deserved. Richard's lips curled into a faint smile. I see that now, and I think everyone else will too. Word of Marcus's success spread like wildfire through the company. Employees who had once ignored him now sought his advice. Teams that had once doubted him now followed his guidance. The janitor who had been invisible had become a symbol of possibility, proof that perseverance, intelligence, and courage could break through barriers of hierarchy, prejudice, and expectation. Marcus didn't just celebrate his own success. He mentored others, helping overlooked employees recognize their potential. He encouraged observation, creativity, and critical thinking. Slowly, the company culture began to change. Talent was recognized wherever it appeared, and ideas were judged on merit, not the position of the person presenting them. One evening, as Marcus stood by the window overlooking the city, he reflected on a journey. From humble beginnings as a janitor to being recognized as a problem solver and leader, he had endured skepticism, ridicule, and immense pressure. Yet, he had remained steadfast, letting his skill and integrity guide him. He thought of Jenna, of Harper, of the countless employees whose potential had been overlooked, and he realized something powerful. Justice isn't always immediate, and recognition isn't always given freely. But resilience, courage, and truth eventually prevail. Marcus whispered to himself, quietly but with conviction, talent cannot be ignored forever. Courage cannot be silenced. And perseverance always finds a way. As he turned back to his team, ready for the next challenge, Marcus knew the journey was far from over. But he also knew this. The barriers he had broken, the lives he had touched, and the system he had transformed would leave a legacy far greater than any single triumph. In that moment, Marcus Lewis, the janitor who solved a $100 million problem in seconds, was more than a symbol of brilliance. He was a beacon of hope, proof that resilience, courage, and truth can triumph against all odds. The company had changed, and so had he.